All right, good morning, Suzuki Science. I am talking to all three classes, grade 12s, grade 11s, grade 10s, and a little bit later on in this really quick daily, I guess I don't really do anything really quickly, so I guess I might be talking for at like, let's say maybe 10 minutes, hopefully no more than 10. I already wasted like 20 seconds telling you how little time I'm going to talk. So I thought I'd share some things that I've been reading about in the past week. None of them related to COVID. They're all related to other things happening in the world. I was reading through one of my magazines, and it talked about this box jellyfish. And when you take a look at this fish looks like the most, it doesn't look very nimble, does it? It looks like it would take a while to move and escape predators or go around the reef. So look at this video here. All right, so this box jellyfish, what's really interesting about it is that they have just determined, based on its structure and some heat, I don't know, using some particular equipment that shows where blood was moving around in the fish, how it's able to move itself so quickly, because it actually is an extremely nimble fish that's able to dart in and out of the coral reef very effectively, and has baffled scientists for quite a while. What's also interesting about the boxfish is that it is very water dynamic, I guess, but the design of the boxfish allows it to cut through the water very quickly, which seems really odd. It seems at odds with its box-like shape. Mercedes-Benz, you probably heard of the car company, have been looking for a variety of ways to increase their space in their vehicle while maintaining aerodynamics and fuel efficiency. And so they went to this field called biomimetics. We'll talk more about that in grade 11 bio especially, where we try to imitate nature. And in this case, Mercedes-Benz created this box-like vehicle. You can see it. It's a concept car, and that is very roomy, and for whatever reason, it seems to be able to cut through the air very quickly. Another thing I read about recently was a zoo. This zoo in Germany, I believe. So it's currently translated, but it's a typical zoo. It's smaller than the Toronto Zoo. Toronto Zoo is a very large zoo. And they show the different animals they have there. And I said I was going to not talk about COVID stuff, but this one I found interesting because this zoo, they're concerned. They recognize that with the downturn in the admissions and with everyone not working, there's no money coming in, and they can't feed their animals. So they have stated that they may end up feeding their animals to their animals if they run out of money. That's crazy. Imagine a zoo doing that. You've probably seen little penguins walking on a zoo and people following them as they go around the zoo in this kind of new pandemic era. But that seems pretty extreme. Something that you may have found is that you don't know what day it is. I mean, now you're in school, but you know, I don't know if you ever heard of Tom Hanks. He's the guy who played Forrest Gump, and he played Castaway, and he played Big, and a lot of other shows that are probably more my generation than yours. But he was on this weekend, the last weekend of SNL, and he summed up what it feels like to be stuck at home and watch through windows, TV, and internet as the world changes at a bewildering pace. And he said, "There's no such thing as Saturdays anymore. It's just every day is today." And we're kind of in this phenomenon, in this field where we don't know if it's Monday or Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday. I asked some of you, how was your 4-day weekend? And was it? Maybe if you ate food and celebrated Easter, it was a little bit different, but it's kind of weird like that. And so some newscasts and some places around the world, what they're doing is they're starting their newscast off in the morning by this big giant kind of 70s, 80s symbol showing what day of the week it is. Next concept that I found very interesting. So there's these big giant telescopes. They're always building a new one. There's a new Webb telescope that's going to be launched. It's been delayed. I think it was supposed to be shipped off into space like 5 years ago. It got delayed to 2019, then 2019, 2020. I actually don't even know if they've shipped it up into space yet. The James Webb, it's supposed to replace the Hubble. It'd be amazing. So they're able to determine if the telescopes are worth their money if they are able to produce lots of papers. So I guess an average big telescope on the planet would produce 50 to 70 papers, scientific papers per year, something like that. And here's a little table. You saw the title. It was all about scientific productivity and image impact of large telescopes. I know it might not sound the most interesting to some of you, but I found this interesting because I didn't know about this. And so here they list some observatories and a number of papers since that observatory was created. And you'll see some of these average out to 200 papers a year, some of them average out to 20 a year. But the big telescopes are typically minimum 50, if not 100 and plus. So this is a telescope that's on a plane. It's part of a joint partnership between NASA and Germany's space agency. And it costs, I don't know, $150 million a year or something like that annually. And for that money, it's producing 21 papers on average per year. It's been a flop, I guess we'll call it a scientific flop. They have not been able to see as many things as they want. What is the advantage of putting a telescope on a plane? Well, the same reason why we put them in outer space. Depending on what it is you're trying to see, the water vapor in our atmosphere actually makes it very hard to do infrared scans because the water vapor, it heats up and it makes the whole sky seem very bright. So there is some reason for this, clearly. I mean, they put a telescope on a plane and it flies around the world all the time. Anyway, I thought that was interesting as well. Look at this organism. So in grade 11 biology, one of the things you were supposed to do was we were going to design an arthropod. I don't see that happening anymore, but look at this interesting organism. So this organism here, it's called a Tolbergia, and it's recently been found, this tiny little animal, and it lives under the rocks in Antarctica's inland mountain peaks. And in that area, the cold, dry, salty, sometimes, area, nothing should live. But this organism has persisted in this place, the same place, for millions of years, which ties in with our evolutionary concept in grade 11 bio. And tying with our grade 12, the gene sequences of Tolbergia and other Antarctic critters may explain their survival. So the genes code for certain physiological traits that allow them to survive and causes us to consider rewriting the history of life across that continent. So it's pretty interesting. This thing has not changed. It's outlasted 30 ice ages without changing. All right. So I've given you several different topics, widely differing, and hopefully one of them you found somewhat interesting. Now this week, each class will be working through a Flipgrid activity. You may have heard of Flipgrids from previous classes or online because a lot of educators are talking about it. And what I want to do is I want to quickly demonstrate how you can use this app. You can either connect through your computer or through an app installed on your device. And what will happen is we will provide you with a flip code or a QR code, and you'll use that in order to sign in. It'll bring you to a landing page. So here's our Flipgrid for the grade 12 course that you'll be using today, grade 12s. Grade 11 and grade 10s will be using a different one. And what will happen is we'll share a code inside our Google Classroom or the QR code, so you can just scan it and get in. You'll come into a login page and you'll ask if you want to sign in with Google or Microsoft. You'll sign in with Google, you'll sign in with your Peel account, and then you'll be fine. When you get to that landing page, let me just open this up here. Hopefully, it will ask you for a join code. And so that join code, you'll type the join code in. Once you type the join code in, you'll get to this page here and you'll log in with Google and you'll be in, okay? You'll see previous responses. Grade 12s, you have very specific instructions. Grade 11s and grade 10s, you have very specific instructions. I'll say those at the end, but you'll see a plus sign. So basically you hit the plus sign and it's as long as you have your camera set up on your phone, and it'll ask you if you want to use the camera, if you can use the microphone on your computer or your phone, and then you just start recording. Hit the record button. I'm speaking, and when you're done, you hit the pause button, and you hit next. I'm going to cancel out of this. It's going to ask me if you make a mistake and you want to redo it, you're welcome to do that. So I'm going to confirm, and it's done. So Flipgrid is super easy to use. Okay? So at this point, I'm done with the daily, and I'm going to specifically talk to the grade 10s, grade 11s, and grade 12s. So what I'll do in the bar down there, I will give you a time code. So grade 10s, I'm going to start with you. Grade 11s, you can immediately jump to, and grade 12s, you can immediately jump to, I don't know yet. Grade 10s. So there have been a lot of questions about what you're supposed to complete and hand in. So if I go to our course here in the Google Classroom, It looks like I don't have it open, so we go to the classroom here. All right, so there's been a number of questions, grade 10s, about what you're supposed to complete and hand in. So even though I made it in the clear in the video lesson for the week, right, and in what I do one lesson at the beginning of the week, and that's your entire week, I know that was a lot of information, and it's really easy for you to get confused. So that's fine, a lot of information. At the end of the week, you're determining whatever work you completed from the Google Doc. So when you take a look at this, you'll see there's this cancer lab, and it's a Google Doc, right? And you're going to complete it. And when I say complete, just do whatever you deem appropriate, okay? And as you work through that, when you're done, or when Friday's done, just submit whatever you've done. What I want you to recognize, though, is that the more that you do, the more preparation you'll have for grade 11 biology, okay? So if you only complete a little bit, then you won't be as well prepared. If you complete all of it, you will be much better prepared. Okay? Regardless of how much the Google Doc you complete, part 4 is what you should be completing. That would be considered completion. If you complete part 4 in the Google Doc, that's completion. So if I scroll down here to the bottom, because there's a bunch of interesting things that just activities to keep you engaged in the learning process, as opposed to sitting and watching the paint dry on your wall if you decide to do some home improvement. You go to part 4, and so this is the Dear 14-Year-Old Me. And initially, I think even in here, it says to use a Padlet, but we're no longer going to use a Padlet. We're actually going to use the Flipgrid. And so I'm going to give you a Flipgrid code, and I don't think I can put it in here because most of you have opened this up already, so you have your own document, so I can't change this anymore. But I'll give you a Flipgrid code, and you're going to go to the Flipgrid, and that's where you're going to put up your dialogue. Okay? So the Flipgrid is designed to be visual. It's a visual product. And I said before, you could use whatever you want. You could use a piece of paper, or you could use an audio podcast, or you can use a video kind of podcast. So this is actually designed to be you looking at the camera, you looking at your phone, and you're saying something. If you're really uncomfortable talking to your phone and everyone's seeing you, then what you could do is you can write it down on a sheet of paper, shine your phone at the piece of paper, you can see the words, and you can just say it. But regardless, you're all saying your piece. You're talking, you're saying out loud your Dear 14-Year-Old Me monologue. Okay? Now, in terms of the marks, there's a lot of people are asking, what do I have to complete in order to get my grade? So the message has been pretty clear from the board and the ministry that whatever mark you receive for the first part of our course, so whatever we received completing the first unit and any evaluations that we did before the break, or any of the learning that we've done before the break, all that stuff, that mark is the lowest mark you can receive. And if you receive an incomplete, then your mark will stay the same. If you complete the stuff I've marked as complete, so part 4, then your mark is likely to go up. And if you do exemplary work, where you complete it very well as the Google Doc and some pieces of it, not necessarily the whole thing, get exemplary work, then your mark will go up. Okay, so that's how the marking scheme will kind of look. I have to be very general with it because we are still receiving direction from the board and the ministry of how the marks will work. So at this point, do the minimum. At the minimum, do the minimum. At the minimum, do part 4. And then for those of you who are interested in preparing yourself for next year, especially if you're taking grade 11 bio, then do more of the Google Sheet. Okay? That's it for grade 10. Grade 10, you can stop the video and move on. Grade 11, this is where we're starting. So, grade 11, I've provided you with a Google Doc that you can work through. And let me just go to our course here, grade 11. So that doc is the pandemic. I say pandemic has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's just my label to know what year this was, 2020. We'll always know it as a pandemic year. So at the end of Friday's class, whatever you've completed, just submit it. And this is kind of my attendance to know that you're actually working. It's very informal marking. And as I mentioned to the grade 10s, it's a very broad categories of incomplete, complete, and exemplary. So don't feel the pressure to complete everything on here. So when you're working through this activity, This is the framework that gets you ready for next year or university. Okay? If you submit at least a couple of pieces, I'd consider that incomplete. If you get an incomplete, results in the same grade. So whatever mark you have that covers whatever we learned before the March break, that's the minimum mark you can get in this course. If you do this as an incomplete, your mark will stay the same. If you complete the activity, if you complete the minimum amount of work that I consider the completion part, then your mark may go up for next year, may go up. And if you do exemplary, so that means you do the complete thing, or a lot of it. You don't do every single thing to get exemplary, but if you do a good chunk of the Google Doc, I consider that exemplary, and your mark will go up. So that's kind of like the broad categories. Okay, so grade 11s, your daily activity for today. So in addition to this, every once a week we have a daily activity typically. Today's daily activity is to create a Flipgrid. So I showed you the Flipgrid already. This is the grade 12, so yours will look slightly different. And your topic, here are the instructions. They'll be written down and they'll be posted on the Google Classroom. You have a 1 minute max, and you'll be recording yourself. You have to pick any organism, animal, plant, bacteria, protist, which we know nothing about at the moment, or a fungi. Any organism that you find interesting, and explain how, wait for it, natural selection has allowed it to be well suited for its environment. So if it's a cheetah, explain how it's adapted speed in order to catch the very fast impala. If it is a slug, then explain how the slime allows it to move across the dry terrestrial earth, and so on and so on. Now, in this Flipgrid that has 1 minute maximum, you're welcome to act out your organism. So if you're a fish, do a fish thing, or if you're a bird, do a flying thing. Draw a caricature if you want. You can mime it, or simply just talk. Everyone in the class will see your Flipgrid, and this is meant to be somewhat frivolous. So just have a good time with it. All right? It's not a 0 or 100%. It's just do it. I see that you did it. I know you're here this week. Check you're attending. We're good to go. Okay, so have fun with this. I'll create one too. I don't know if we'll be ready for tomorrow morning, but I'll create one at some point. And remember, you have a maximum of 1 minute. 30 seconds is fine if you can do it in 30 seconds. So here's the most important part of the Flipgrid, and your 1 minute, 30 second, whatever you're going to do. You are not allowed to tell us what the organism is. Whether it's a cheetah, a fish, a redwood, I don't care. Don't tell us what it is. We have to guess what it is based on your ability. And so if you tell us, you can tell us all the details. You can tell us how it grows, where it grows. Don't tell us the scientific name. Tell us all the information as you deem fit. And you cannot tell us the name of the organism. We have to guess it. All right, grade 11s, that's our thing. Grade 11s, you're done, sign off, and keep on working. Grade 12s. All right, so grade 12s, you had quite a bit of content this week. Let me go to your course. Oops, wrong one. All right. So you've been asked to learn about scientists. You've been asked to learn about the DNA structure as a molecular machine. You've been asked to look at the process of DNA and how it replicates itself. That's the big learning, the DNA replication. I'd mentioned that I would provide a small lesson on Sanger sequencing as well. It's a biotech technique. I haven't done it yet, so if I do, I'll put it up and you'll see an announcement. If I do it, I will include an activity worksheet that you can work through to get a better understanding, but it will not be tested. Or it will not be quizzed. It will not be assessed anyway. It will just be you, so you get better prepared for university. With the other two classes, what I've done is I've created Google Docs for the worksheet. So the grade 10 had this so the grade 11s had this worksheet on microevolution. Right? And all the yellow stuff was what they had to complete and submit. The grade 10s had this worksheet, right? The stuff that they had to complete. But for you guys, you did not get a worksheet. So you just got a lot of information. So work through the PowerPoints, work through the video lesson, ask questions if necessary. Please do, that's what I'm here for. But I did mention on Friday there would be some kind of, quiz. This quiz will not count towards your midterm. It is not meant to count. It's just to make sure that you have covered the material. Mr. Desange and I will review your big task for this unit, and we'll make sure that the big task will include content from this week as well as the rest of the unit. And that will be used to come up with a grade, a mark, and that will be used to complement your grade. At this point, whatever your midterm mark is, which you know, that's the lowest mark you can get in this course. Your mark cannot be anything lower than that. Okay? If you, typically with our marks, I can't really tell you how we're going to mark yet because we really don't know all the information, but if you decide not to do any of the work and kind of just sit there, you'll be completely unprepared for next year. Your mark will not change. It will not go up, which I know most of you would like to see because this is a really easy time for you to raise your mark up. If you complete the work, your mark may go up. Right? It might go up by 0.5% or 1% depending on the units, or if not better. If you get exemplary work, your mark will go up. If you do exemplary work on the stuff from now to the end of the year, your mark will go up, guaranteed. Okay, so kind of use that as a guideline to what you want to put into this. I'm putting a lot of time into making your lessons and getting you to a place where you can learn the material as well as you can considering the situation. So I'm hoping that you will take that opportunity and learn as much as possible. All right, so today's daily activity, you'll see that Mr. Desange already uploaded a activity on Flipgrid. The instructions are there, so feel free to have some fun with it. You don't just have to sit at the screen and read it all monotone. You can. Nothing wrong. We're just getting used to the technology, and then we might use this technology later in the course, especially with the unit task or the culminating task. Okay? If you know the movie, get into character, right? If you don't know the movie, then it's a great movie. You should watch it. The book's fantastic as well. Grade 12, we're done. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. See you on the other side.